Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Welcome to the Lake Central Board meeting, January 23. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Welcome to the Lake Central Board meeting, January 23. Indivisible. I pledge allegiance to the flag Thank you. Of the United States. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Welcome to the Lake Central Board meeting, January 23. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag Thank you. Of the United States. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Welcome to the Lake Central Board meeting, January 23. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Welcome to review the packets that were sent to us. All right. Prior to this meeting, and now we are the pledge of the United States. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Welcome to review the packets that were sent to us. All right. Prior to this meeting, and now we are the pledge of the United States.
Yes.
Now we are ready to review the packets that were sent to us. All right. Prior to this meeting, and now we are the pledge of the United States.
Yes.
Now we are ready to review the packets that were sent to us. All right. Prior to this meeting, and now we are the pledge of the United States.
Yes.
Now we are ready to review the packets that were sent to us. All right. Prior to this meeting, and now we are the pledge of the United States.
Yes.
Now we are ready to review the packets that were sent to us. All right. Prior to this meeting, and now we are the pledge of the United States.
Yes.
Now we are ready to review the packets that were sent to us. All right. Prior to this meeting, and now we are the pledge of the United States.
application boot camp?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that involves, but I know it's just focused on college, and I'm thinking of
I think
students
because
that,
so many parents struggle with the college application process,
so it's the actual,
that we actually have some meetings and call in folks who go through that process start to finish for them. Is that correct, Mr.
Correct.
Bowers?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, so it's more of a technical, parents sit down, let me help you through this.
It's mostly for, it's basically for the seniors, you know, to get them started on the right foot
Jumpstart.
and to answer any initial early questions seniors or parents might have, and they've moved the financial aid earlier in the school year, so all of that, you just have to start earlier. And we think by starting it before school, it's kind of a good transition into, hey, you're a senior, are you thinking about what you're doing post-high school, and we want to help you as much as possible. And the process is somewhat detailed in certain areas, so we think that the time spent simply doing that process is very beneficial for the kids.
I have a couple questions now. Is it only for seniors, or can juniors do that as well?
Anyone can go, but
Okay.
it's, you know, primarily looked at for those senior kids that haven't maybe gotten off to an early start or have questions or don't have answers to certain things.
And I do like your idea, though, that I know a lot of our kids don't really fill out job applications on their own, or, you know, careers, or whether it's ASVAB, things like that. So your idea, though, that I know a lot of our kids don't really fill out job applications on their own, or, you know, careers, or whether it's ASVAB, things like that. So your idea, though, that I know a lot of our kids don't really fill out job applications on their own,
scratch it out. I know if I see that, that's going in the garbage. I'm not even saying that.
things like that. So your idea, though, that
Right now, the first time that it says last name, I write your first name first and scratch it out. I know if I see that, that's going in the garbage. I'm not even saying that.
things like that. So your idea, though, that
Right now, the first time that it says last name, I write your first name first and scratch it out. I know if I see that, that's going in the garbage. I'm not even saying that.
things like that. So your idea, though,
Right now, the first time that it says last name, I write your first name first and scratch it out. I know if I see that, that's going in the garbage. I'm not even saying that.
things like that. So your idea, though,
Right now, the first time that it says last name, I write your first name first and scratch it out. I know if I see that, that's going in the garbage. I'm not even saying that.
things like that. So your idea, though,
Right now, the first time that it says last name, I write your first name first and scratch it out.
Waiting, you know, until you get done with high school to further your career in that endeavor. And you know, it was slow 2 years ago when we initially started it, but this past November, it was much, you know, we, a lot more positive feedback from both sides of the students and the people who came out. So it's been very successful,
You had a good turnout then, huh?
very much so.
Good. Well, then it would make sense then that we would follow up and do something with the career students in August also. Because, you know, theirs is so much the basic too. Can you be organized? Can you be on time? Can you bring all the papers with you that you're supposed to bring? So that would be awesome. Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay. Moving on. What's my agenda? Let me find my agenda. And next is Director of Primary Education.
Thank you. For my first item, I am seeking your approval of the professional leave request that was included in your packet.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. And for my last item, I just wanted to share some information on a workshop that Lake Central hosted on December 2nd of this past year. It was led by one of our Lake Central deans, Kelly Boersma. We had 16 people from 12 different preschools attend. Kelly titled her presentation Transition to Kindergarten, and her intent was to share with area preschools what our Lake Central kindergarten students do and how they could help prepare students for kindergarten. It was 2 hours long, and during that time she shared best practices in reading, writing, and math, and some activities that the preschools could do with their students to prepare them for the beginning of kindergarten. She received some very positive feedback, and next year she plans to do a make and take workshop, so she will share actual activities that students can, the preschools can do with students.
Big attendance for that?
It has increased steadily over the last 3 years, so I think after this one, because this one was very positive, I think the preschools will talk to each other and more will show up.
Any other questions? It's really a good idea to communicate and work,
We're all working towards the same,
reach with the community,
Yep.
yeah. What was I going to ask you? Oh, when you said make it, take it, it made me think of Title I, the requirement, to have parent involvement activities, and how are those going at our Title I schools?
we had parent meetings in the fall, and we have a math night coming up February 2nd for all 3 title schools. And parents and students will come to, it'll be held at Protzman, and we have several activities teaching them some games and things that they can do at home with their students that'll tie in to our new map.
February 2nd, did you
Yes.
say? And what time is that?
6 to 7:30. Thanks,
That's
Glenn.
math.
This.
Awesome, all right. And I had another question for you, because you were not here at the January 9th meeting, but I noticed that all the principals were going to a session on high ability data selection. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that?
That is put on by Consultants for High Ability, and it is, has several components. One, to look at data on the effectiveness of our program, to review how and what data we use to identify students. So those are the 2 big things. It's a short workshop, but all elementary principals wanted to be a part of that so they can get better at high ability services for students.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. All right. Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. My first item, I am seeking your approval for the professional leave request, the revised copy that you received. On the last page, we had some additions from Clark to attend a content area reading workshop at Valparaiso University, which does an annual middle school conference.
Move to approve?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor with a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Motion carries.
Thank you. And for my second item, I am seeking your approval for the field trip requests. I do apologize that one of the field trips took place this weekend. We have a new staff member at the high school who accidentally submitted the form to the wrong location, and we didn't want to penalize the students for an activity that they've gone to for many years, so we did allow them to attend. But I'm seeking your approval for those field trip requests as presented.
Move to approve.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries. Thank you. All right, Mrs. Gramella.
May I have one additional question? Sarah and Tim, you can chime in. It really wasn't down here on the agenda. I hope this is not inappropriate. But are we going to have any difficulty with the push for Indiana history being implemented in the curriculum? When would that occur? At what grade level? The legislature is pushing for integration of an Indiana history class in the curriculum.
Yeah, I'll speak to that.
Yes, sir.
There is a piece of legislation out there, and it's an elective course.
Oh,
That
it's
has to
elected,
be-
I thought it was mandatory.
No, it's an elective, well, it's mandatory that you offer it. No student has
okay.
to take it. Where it gets fuzzy is if you don't get 15 kids to sign up for the class, typically we wouldn't run it. And the language in the current bill says students would still be able to take it via distance learning, but they don't talk about how, and then it says if a school has, a distance learning offering, well, who would be doing that? And it's a little messy, but it is mandatory that you offer the course.
Okay.
It's not mandatory that any student, 9th through 12th, ever take the course.
So we offer Indiana history at 4th grade, so this would be to revisit it in high school. Is that right?
Well, there's no
Okay.
curriculum out there really other than to say it's about Indiana with history and economics.
Do they offer it on their online website then?
The online
It
academy?
doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't,
Yeah.
No, it's an
online
entirely
academy.
new
it
proposal.
doesn't exist yet.
I'm just saying that that's where they should start.
This is a legislator, this
Just
is a
saying.
legislator wanting
They should
schools,
create it and start it and we'll offer it.
Absolutely.
but if it goes as he plans, then everyone will create one, and eventually they'll put their heads together, and it'll be a pretty good course over time, as you know, but it's a little, needs a little more cooking right now.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Gumala.
My first item is to seek your approval of the professional leave requests included in your packet.
Move to approve?
Second?
Okay. Motion on the floor with a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. And my second item is to seek your approval for a field trip request that was included in your packet.
Again, so moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Okay, and for my last item, I just wanted to give you all an update on our special education funding. As a refresher for all of you, I included some information on what our funding is used for. So on December 1st of every year, we take account of all of our students who are with us and receiving special education funding. So that count then determines what's called the APC funding, which is our additional dollars we receive for students with special needs. And those numbers also then feed into our grant allocations for our Part B special education grants. So our total APC for this December 1 count was $4,452,200. That also includes our non-public students that we serve in the private schools. So that's our students within Lake Central and also in the non-pubs here in the Lake Central School Corporation. So on the second page, you see there are different funding levels for our students with special needs. So our Group 1 students are our students with the most significant needs. We had a total of 228 students in that category. The number in parentheses is the number of students we had last year, just to give you a little bit of a comparison. So we are slightly up in that category. Group 2, those are our students, those are more of what we would call our high incidence disabilities, things like specific learning disabilities. So that's a lower level of funding. We're up in that category as well with 714 students this year compared to 681 last year. Group 3, those are our students with speech language impairments. And there's a total of 614 students, but what I want you to understand is that this is a duplicated count. So our speech language students, they may also have another disability. So we have 614 students receiving those services, but those students may also fall into one of those other categories as well. And then finally, our preschool program, which we get the same amount of funding for all preschool children. And that is also slightly up to 146 students from 133 last year. So the only area where we did see a decrease in students is in that speech and language impairment category. So then when you look at the total number of students, so those numbers I gave you before would be what we would call a duplicated count, and that students may fall in multiple categories. But when you look at just our total unduplicated total number of students receiving services, we were at 1,421 on December 1st. So that is a definite increase over last year. Still not up to, I included in your packet numbers back to 2011. So we're still not up to our high of 2012 with 1,489, but still an increase from last year. So just wanted to share those numbers with you. We do count again in April, and they look at where we are compared to where we were in December and may adjust our funding at that point.
They may.
They may. They usually do.
They usually
Okay.
do.
Okay.
Janice,
Yes.
as long as we're in this area, I failed to make a comment during my liaison updates on Westlake. Munster, School Town of Munster has a new representative. John Doherty will be the managing board rep from Munster. And you may be familiar with his name. I'm not sure what his professional qualification is. I just know he deals with sports medication and things of that nature. But I just wanted to add that to Becky's report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any questions about the report that Mrs. Grimala just gave to us? So if our student enrollment is down a bit, but yet our numbers are pretty strong in special ed, do you attribute that to increased testing and processing or move-ins or?
We did get what I feel like was a significant number of move-ins this year. I have not gone and compared that to our numbers in the past. I do think we have a reputation in the area for providing high-quality services to our students with special needs.
Absolutely.
And that word spreads, and so we do get a lot of parents who move here for that reason. So
Absolutely.
I'm proud of that, so.
And you should be, and that takes a lot of work
Mhm.
by a lot of people.
It does.
Everyone that works with children, I mean, it is a phenomenal reputation to have, so. Any other questions? All right, thank you. And I believe that you are next. Oh, Mr. Ledger's not here, so,
He only needs you to sign a couple documents, is that correct, Jeannie? So Mrs. Lessentine and Dr. Malco, you have a couple things to
Yes.
sign before you leave for Bill.
all right, very good. And moving on to Mr. Jameson.
Thank you, Dr. Malco. My first item is to seek your approval on a transfer of textbook rental fee money from textbook rental fund to the general fund. This is something we do twice a year. It's just to refresh your memory, when a family pays their textbook rental fee, all the money gets received into the textbook rental fund. However, general fees such as agendas and IDs and items that are not tied specifically to a class, those expenditures are paid out of the general fund. So in order to, as I say, follow the money, we need to make sure that the revenues that we collect are going to the same area where the expenditures are paid out of. So from July 1st through December 31st, 2016, a total of $174,101.70 of general fees were collected. And so therefore, I am requesting a transfer of that 174,101.70 from the textbook rental fund to the general fund.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion on the table, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you, and I have two donations for your approval this evening, both on the receive side. First, Bivich Elementary School received a donation of $200 from Exelon Dollars for Doers, and our Westlake Special Ed Department received a transport chair donated to them by Tom and Regina Edwards in memory of Meredith Edwards, and has an approximate value of $2,000. So I seek your approval on both of those donations.
Move to,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any questions for Mr. James? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay,
Public comments.
right, are there any public comments? No. Okay. Let's go ahead and just go down the table. Mrs. Lessentine, we'll start with you.
Are we talking board comments and consideration of future items?
Yes, ma'am.
I've got none at this time.
All right. Mr. Baxa.
I just want to thank our administration for their reports. Al, great report, thank you very much for that. And also Teresa, definitely related, Kelly, thank you for that workshop. She does a great job, and I'd like her to hear that. And that's all I have.
And Mrs. Seuss?
No, I have nothing at this time.
And Mr. Marshall?
I also have nothing, thank you.
Okay, I have a few questions. With the budget running anticipated running in the red for 2017, how worried are you about that? And what do we need to start thinking about? And do you think it's short-term? Do you think it's long-term?
Well, short term, the projection I gave you is for this 2016-2017 school year, not calendar year 17. But, so we're already, we're over halfway through that. So, with most of our expenditures going to salaries and benefits, there's really not much that's gonna change there between now and the end of June. I'm not as concerned about it for this school year. When we negotiated the contract with the teachers 2 years ago, we knew that we were going to run in the red slightly this year, but we had a healthy cash balance, And we were willing to do that because we didn't feel like a need to grow the cash balance anymore. Moving that forward, I think, bottom line is it all comes down to kids, and it all comes down to the number of dollars that we get per kid out of the legislator. So we have the kindergarten enrollment coming up here in the beginning of March. That'll be a good indication of where we're going to be student-wise for the next school year. And then we'll know by the end of April, where are we on the budget side of what comes out of the legislature. The governor's proposal was a 1% increase for the first year, and then an additional 2% the second year. So we're not keeping up with inflation with that, but we have additional expenses that are going with that. So more so long-term, I would be concerned because we want to take care of our employees. We hope not to have a pay freeze, but it could be something because we don't want to run into the bread and be deficit spending. So long-term, I would just be hesitant about adding additional expenditures or adding programs at this time until we know exactly what's coming out of the General Assembly in April, by the end of April. And the problem, just because they proposed the budget in April and pass it, the school funding formula could change. So we'll say we get a 1% increase to the total K-12 education. That doesn't mean that we're going to get 1% more. We can get 0.5% and our neighbor can get 1.5%. It's just how the formula plays out. So, and then usually the funding formula itself is not adjusted until the end of June because it takes time for them to rebuild it after the legislation session is done. So we have to be cautious, about what we do here for the next 6 months and then heading into the next school year.
Well, let me also add that, in the past, they've taken extra slices out of that pie. So when the K-12 Indiana education budget goes up by a certain amount, it's not public K-12, it's K-12. It's all schools. And if they carve out more, if they voucher expand again, then it won't be one for public schools for sure because more will be going in other directions. So that's what you're faced with. We really, after we righted the ship, we have operated at a surplus each year until this year. And people who know me know that I believe the state gives us money each year to educate this year's children. And while I don't think you should spend every penny, I think you should spend almost every penny because they gave it to you to educate this year's cohort. And once you have your cushion, you should try to operate near that margin. This year we're not. But as Mr. James said, we are concerned that we don't want to consistently operate at a deficit. There's no way we will do that because we know the pain that it caused and we're not going to go down that road again. But we are hopeful for an increased tuition support for each student. And we're hoping that our student population levels off here at some point too.
And if I could add, whenever you bring up money, you got a lot of people who can add. Well, if I could add to what Dr. Rocco stated, we follow the educational timeline of making decisions. I mean, we can't wait until August to see what kind of funding we're going to have and then make decisions accordingly. I mean, we are planning right now. I mean, we're always about 6 months ahead. We are planning right now for what the start of the 2017-18 school year, looks like. And we have to be conservative, and we have to watch our dollars, and we have to make the best decisions we can on what's in our students' best interest. What we haven't talked about here are some of the federal dollars that come our way. And I will tell you that we have lost, we will lose about $200,000 in our Title I budget. We already have that budget, and we already know that we'll be about $200,000 in the red. So Teresa, as the Title I coordinator, Rob and I have been working to balance that budget in 2017-18. So that will be a little bit rough. But it's a process, and it starts now, and it continues to work its way through, all the way through the summer.
Well, I think Mr. Niemeyer, when we met with our legislators, had the suggestion that we would do open enrollment to get more money. Is that correct? Right?
One of his suggestions.
Right. So I don't think that we're necessarily in favor of that, or are we as a board? I mean, we need to think about that. But in addition to that, if we want to start planning for the future and all the local districts around us are doing operating budget referendums, do we need to start thinking that way? So perhaps we can have dialogue about that soon, because I don't think we want to leave our administrators in a bad situation for the future. So just wanted to bring that up. I think that's pretty important to stay on top of that. I noticed that I was at a basketball game the other night in the high school, and I walked by this room that had all these little kids in there wrestling. So evidently we have a summer or an intramural wrestling program going.
A little kids wrestling program?
Yeah, or maybe they were middle school kids. Maybe they
Indian
were.
Wrestling Club.
What was it?
Indian Wrestling Club, it's K-8.
K-8.
It's run by our wrestling coaches, but it's a club.
Yeah. Well, it was neat. It was neat to see the building in use. We had so much going on that night. It's nice to see our facility being used. And Rebecca, this is just my personal opinion, but I would love to hear information about Compagna when you do your report.
Sure.
Just because it's such a unique program that we have. And I think we need to embrace it more than we do and maybe celebrate some good points about it, if you don't mind.
We can do that in the future.
All right. Okay, are there any future calendar dates that we need to know about?
Well, we're back to the first and third Mondays next month, so we'll be back here on February 6th, and we will start doing a major promotion for our wake-up call. That's the next in our series of addiction awareness programs. That's February 28th. That will be in the LGI room on February 28th. More to come on that.
And there's multiple meeting times for that, so it's not just in the evening.
Have I sent everyone the colored flyer that you can start to pass out? And
I had a hard time downloading that onto my Facebook page and on my email for some reason, so maybe if you could resend it in a PDF.
And I can send it such that you can register on that eBrite by just clicking on that link. And I did put that now on the webpage, the Lake Central School Corporation webpage.
Excellent.
I saw that, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, hearing nothing else? All right, motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion adjourned. Meeting